After the play, unsportsmanlike conduct. Number 11 of the defense, throwing the LSU player's shoe 20 yards down the field.
I don't think I've ever heard an official announce throwing a player's shoe.
Well,
and it wasn't 11. It was Marco Wilson.
In the world of college football, every team has a moment that they'd love to take back. A drop pass, a missed kick, or a crucial mistake when everything was on the line. But for the 2020 Florida Gators, it wasn't a misplay or a bad call. It was a penalty. One that changed the game, derailed their season, and became one of the most infamous moments in program history. This is the story of the costliest penalty in Florida Gators history. This is the story of the Florida Gators shoe throw. The Florida Gators came into the 2020 season hopeful of a successful year after going 10-2 the previous season and having Dan Mullen at head coach as well as Kyle Trask at quarterback. All seemed well in Gainesville as the Gators were set to kick off the season with an away game at Ole Miss. After the game began, we were treated to a glimpse of the type of performance that Kyle Trask would have in the 2020 season. Trask went off, passing for 416 yards on 30 completions as well as 6 touchdowns. He and the Gators dominated Ole Miss on the way to a 51-35 victory in the first game of the season. More of the same would follow in their next game against South Carolina, where the Gators would roll to a 38-24 victory in their second game of the season. It was in the following week against Texas A&M that Florida would face their first real setback of the season. Florida got off to a hot start, putting up 14 points in the first quarter. However, the game would swing in the Aggies' favor shortly after, and in the final quarter, A&M would put up 17 points to seal an unlikely victory by a final score of 41-38. Despite the setback, Gators fans had hope. Kyle Trask had played another great game, logging over 300 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, and it was the defense who had let the Gators down. And as we'll see very soon, it would happen again. The Gators bounced back from that Texas A&M loss with a blowout of Missouri, 41-17. Trask again passed for over 300 yards and once again asserted himself among the elite college quarterbacks. And after Florida finished stomping Mizzou, it was time for clean, old-fashioned hate. The Gators advanced to face the Georgia Bulldogs in the annual rivalry which takes place in Jacksonville, Florida. Historically, Dogs have dominated this rivalry, leading all-time 57-44. However, that would change this time as Florida would defeat Georgia by a final score of 44-28, following a Kyle Trask legacy game. He passed for 474 yards on 30 completions, including 4 touchdowns. It was around this time when college football fanbase as a whole began to view the Gators as genuine playoff contenders. They followed up this impressive performance with 3 consecutive routes of Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky, and advanced to play the Tennessee Volunteers the week after. In this game at Rocky Top, the Gators would start strong, eventually cruising to a comfortable 31-19 victory. And following the game, a deep playoff run only seemed inevitable. However, Florida still had one more regular season game, which happened to be against LSU. But most Gator fans were looking past this game, as Florida was favored by more than 3 scores. The final game of the season would be played in the swamp on a foggy day, and despite LSU seemingly being an afterthought, the game was closely contested, and as it entered the fourth quarter, seemed to be up for grabs. With several minutes left in the game and tied at 34, the Gators defense was tasked with stopping a potential game-winning drive by the Tigers. All seemed to be going well when LSU failed to convert on a 3rd down, and it seemed like they would have to punt. And just as it seemed that Florida would survive a close game, a flag fell on the field.
Approaching 2 minutes to go. In the flat. Can Cole Taylor get there? No, nowhere near the line to make. Tried to go up and over and could not escape from Marco Wilson and Trevez Johnson.
After the play, unsportsmanlike conduct. Number 11 of the defense, throwing the LSU player's shoe 20 yards down the field.
Complete disbelief from everyone involved. How could this happen? With newly breathed life, LSU would then drive down the field and kick what would eventually be the game-winning field goal. The fallout of the incident after the game was immense, and Marco Wilson was feeling it from pretty much every side. Fans were absolutely livid, because how in such a crucial spot can you not have the self-control to keep you from doing that? And it didn't help that after the fact, Wilson was seemingly unapologetic, even doubling down since the incident and stating that he would, quote, probably throw it further if he was given the chance. This came as a shock to many because the penalty was so costly for the team and you would expect a player to acknowledge mistake or apologize. However, Wilson never did this. Despite the entire football world seemingly blaming Wilson for the incident, the blame cannot be placed entirely on him. If you look at the situation, all signs point to the fact that Florida should have never been in that situation in the first place. LSU was 3-5 on the season and on paper stood no chance against the Gators. However, several costly mistakes during the game put LSU in a position to even attempt a game-winning drive. And the mistake by Marco Wilson is simply the one that is remembered the most. Despite all this drama and the play that was now getting national media attention, Florida still had more games to play, starting off with the SEC Championship against Alabama. The Gators would take a road trip to Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, and despite a tough loss to LSU, hopes were still high amongst the Gainesville faithful. After a tightly contested game, Florida would eventually fall to the Crimson Tide by a final score of 52-46. This loss was nothing to be ashamed of, as it was a close game to Alabama. However, with that loss being the Gators' third of the season, they were eliminated from playoff contention, and would face the Oklahoma Sooners in the Cotton Bowl, where they would be blown out 55-20. And that was it for the 2020 Florida Gators. Disappointing end for a team that had showed so much promise and at one point seemed to be genuine contenders for the national championship. And oftentimes when describing their season, the penalty by Marco Wilson is described as the reason why they didn't make the playoffs. However, that begs the question, is it really? If we look at this logically, it is very possible that with the team Florida had, they could have made a deep playoff run with 2 losses. So if you change the outcome of the LSU game, the odds are still very good that Florida makes it. And is it possible that one shoe throw caused Florida to miss a playoff appearance? As stated earlier, we can't place the blame entirely on Marco Wilson. However, if he had not made that one mistake, there is a very good chance that we could have seen Florida in a playoff game. So, I guess that's it. That's the story of one of the costliest penalties in college football history. And we'll wrap it up by asking one question. Did one shoe cost the Gators their season? Well, my friends, that's for you to decide. Hey y'all, so just wanted to talk to y'all a little bit after the video's finished up. So I realized while I was editing this that I forgot to include a couple of details about Marco Wilson personally. So if you don't know anything about Marco Wilson, he is a cornerback for the Cardinals, and he is an NFL level talent. He's a very, very good player, and he was during his entire time with the Florida Gators. And I feel like I didn't include that information well enough during the video, because despite that one mistake, obviously making the shoot throw error, he helped the Gators out a lot during that season. And he is a very big part of the reason why the 2020 Gators defense was so good. And I feel like I really failed at incorporating that during the actual video. So I just wanted to say that now. Anyways, if you're still watching, I do appreciate you staying till the end. And it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe and like this video, because it would really help the channel out. Let me know what you want to see more of. Drop a comment down below. I got some cool projects planned. I know in 2 weeks I'll be releasing a video that I personally am very excited about making. Feel like this is going to be one of the best ones yet. So yeah, I mean, if you're able to, do drop a like and subscribe. It would mean the world. I appreciate you guys watching and supporting. Yeah, that's about all I have for you guys. Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a blessed day, guys. Bye.